I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.
Hello, and welcome to another week here at the Unidentified Celebrity Review. We've got a great show for you all today. A guest who has a unique perspective and a unique command on reality will be joining us. It's going to be a fun discussion, and it might just change your perspective. And you know, I've had a change of perspective recently. I used to think that there's no chance that we've figured out technology, assuming it is tech, behind the unidentified objects in our skies. The observed accelerations alone put it out of reach of theoretical physics and what we know possible. But it recently dawned on me that we will soon be at the point where the theoretical physics will come after the engineered technology. How is that possible, you might ask? Well, quantum computing. You've probably been tuning out the hype that you hear, but the reality of these quantum devices is approaching. And while we may be a ways out from breaking encryption or other fancy computational problems, we've already succeeded in using quantum computers for their original purpose: simulating complex quantum systems. Systems that are too complex even for the most advanced traditional computers. And since 2018, the Department of Energy has been aggressively funding research into the development of quantum materials using quantum simulations. And in a 2016 workshop on quantum materials, the DOE went so far as to say that they expect to find new quantum materials that will revolutionize the world just as a magnetic compass did in 600 BC. Now, it's hard to imagine a material doing that, but a material that allows a craft to shoot through the sky untethered by gravity or drag could certainly do that. And if the DOE is 20 years ahead of the public technology, as many would say, maybe they're speaking from experience. I put together a video on my channel, Rather Be Squidding. Hop on over there after the show to learn more. But we don't need a quantum simulator to know that we're going to have fun today. So let's get on with the show. Please join me in joining our host, Luis Jimenez.
Hey, Rather. What's shaking, buddy?
Not too much. Had a good weekend. Got some yard work done. Did a little cleaning around the house. How about yourself?
A little yard work, huh? I can't.
Turn the compost. I got a beautiful yard. I'm going to plant some plants.
I just pictured you in a white tank top with a bandana, just cracking open a beer.
A little chilly for that, but that does sound nice.
Well, that's the image I got. I don't know, Rather. I don't know what to tell you. Pretty crazy weekend, huh?
Yeah, a lot of news, a lot of people talking.
A lot of people are definitely talking. We'll get into it. UFO Jane will be here soon. Again, Jane Kyle. Of course, before we get started, I want to say thank you to DOS Tapes. They provide all of the tunes you hear on the show. Their Bandcamp link is in the description below. Please check them out. The show will be available on iTunes, Spotify, podcasts, wherever you find your podcasts. Go and find the show. Leave us a rate review. It goes a very, very long way. Truly appreciate it. Want to say thank you to the Patreon members out there, future Patreon members. Link is in the description below. Super chatters. Thank you guys so much. And also to the members out there, the new members of the YouTube channel. Truly appreciate it. Matthew Wright, I see you in there. Aaron Desario. Want to say thank you, of course, to the moderators as well in the chat. Tina Tomaszewski, a number one moderator. So thank you, Tina. You are a blessing. Please, if you can't support the show financially, don't worry about it. All the shows are available for free. There's no paywall here. But please like, share, subscribe. Talk about the show. Talk about this with your friends. It's a fun show. So I hope you guys enjoy it. And then we've also got links for merch. Of course, we got merch, hoodies, hats, shirts, baby stuff. all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. And we've also got links for not only our guests, but our co-hosts, rather, and Jane and everybody else who co-hosts on the show. So please go support their work. All right. Let's get to our guests, shall we, guys? See everyone in the chat. Aaron Desario, what's up, brother? Thank you for being here. Robert Lamke, Craig T Music, Josh and Artemis. Go check out their show, guys. Give them a thumbs up and a like. Alex Crudup. How you guys doing? Grandmaster UV, Xavier Gamer, Swint McLeod, all you guys. This one is for you. This episode is for the fans because we've got, I think, probably, I don't want to call him a fan. He's a co-worker at this point, right? He's part of the team. He's
one-man marketing team.
One-man marketing team that I never paid or solicited. He just does this because he absolutely loves the show. And I am going to go ahead and dub him today as officially part of the UCR team, officially, unofficially, you know? So, yeah, let us bring on the guest of the evening, who is Grant Lavac. He resides in Melbourne, Australia with his wife and their 2-year-old daughter. Holds a bachelor's degree in health science from the University of Western Sydney. Sorry, you guys, I've been working since 6:30 this morning. I'm exhausted, but I'm stoked to be here. So if I slur today or if I just seem off, that is why. Let us continue, shall we? I digress. He's an avid filmmaker and currently works in the tech industry, helping mission-driven organizations leverage governance, management, technology to elevate their board's performance. Grant has held a fascination for UFOs and Bigfoot since he was a child and considers himself to be just an ordinary guy who believes in extraordinary things with a healthy degree of skepticism and an open mind thrown in together for good measure. He's when he's not deep faking the UCR crew or chasing around his daughter, he enjoys being a sponge on the UAP topic and tries to engage his elected representatives down under in the hope that they'll take the topic seriously with respect that it deserves. Without further ado, Mr. Grant Lavac, how are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you guys? It's great to be with you, particularly on President's Day. So again, my apologies if I pulled you out of time with your family and friends today, but it's a thrill to be with you.
Glad you're here.
I'm ashamed to probably admit this, but I feel like the only reason Americans care about President's Day, and I don't mean to speak on behalf of America, but it's the day off. Just they do not try and learn anything about the president. I am guilty of this as well. The thing about President's Day for me, number one reason is I don't have to move the car to the other side of the street for street sweeping. So that is like a blessing when you don't get a ticket when you have to move the car at 10 a.m. Before we get started, let us bring in UFO Jane. Jane Kyle, what's up, girl?
So sorry.
Welcome. Don't be sorry.
Are
you kidding me?
Hi, Grant.
Don't be sorry.
Hey, Jane, it's a pleasure to be with you.
Oh, it's awesome to see you for real. You know,
to finally put a face to the handle and the name and so on. So no, it's a thrill to be with you guys. I couldn't be happy to be here. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, please. The honor is all on this side for sure. So I became aware of you, Grant, after you made a deep fake. I was like, wow, that's hilarious. And the speed at which it happened is what I think was the most impressive for me. I mean, I feel like this is easy for you. I feel like you've got this thing. The deep fakes are on lock for you. You could churn them out faster than a South Park episode. What got you doing that, man? Where did you just think of, I'm gonna take old, and by the way, the clips you use, like they're always from my favorite movies. So that's another thing.
Yeah, I think we share a similar taste in movies. So I've got this brain of mine just pulls out random thoughts on scenes from movies that I enjoyed growing up as a kid and today. So that's where it all comes from. But to be honest, I mean, I stumbled across UCR just before the Big Phone Home 2, and I was kind of I was deep into watching or listening to Jimmy Church on Spotify, and I think he had John Greenwald on, and that led me to your show has somehow landed on UCR and kind of been a UCR fanboy ever since. And when you guys were talking up the Big Phone Home 2, I thought, I'd seen on Twitter, I don't know if you've seen him, there's a guy called, he goes by the handle of Deep Tom Cruise. He does these incredible, absolutely amazing deepfakes of Tom Cruise. So lifelike. I mean, there's a lot of visual effects that goes into their effort, but they're so lifelike that so many people.
They are so lifelike. He just
so
did one the other day with Paris Hilton.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly right.
He gets to deal with famous people now.
And the voice as well. The actor who does it got the voice down so much so that I think Justin Bieber was completely fooled by one of the deepfakes some months back, so he thought it was legit. Anyway, that's kind of how
Have you seen Kyle Dunnigan? If you look up like Kyle Dunnigan, Alec Baldwin, it's so funny.
I'll have to write that down.
And okay. It's not necessarily, it's not like for the effects, but because he does impersonations, and I forgot that I was thinking it was like really Alec Baldwin, for a minute. So yeah, people should check that out.
I'll suss him out,
and especially you. I mean that yeah.
I love a good impersonator as well. I mean, I've seen a lot of them over the years. Gordie Brown, one of my favorites without a doubt. But so I just kind of was watching these deep Tom Cruise fakes, and I thought, the Big Phone Home 2, you guys were really promoting it and encouraging your viewers to kind of get the word out on the street. So I thought, well, why don't I try one of these deep fakes? So I thought I'd go with the approach of begging for forgiveness rather than asking for permission off the bat, and did a post, and you kindly retweeted it, and it seemed to get quite a lot of likes and views. And I thought, well, if this is one way of helping to get the word out on the street on what you guys are doing, because I really saw value early on in what you were doing, the caliber of your guests, the conversations that you're having. I think you guys are really in a unique position to have some very, very important conversations, but do it in a way that's light and energetic and entertaining. You have a laugh while you do it. So that's really what got me started into it. And as they kind of began to get a little bit of traction and more people started liking them and asking, I actually started getting requests. So I've just kind of continued it ever since. So not with the intention of being kind of like the deepfake guy. That's kind of how I've fallen into this role. So, but it's a lot of fun to do it. I mean, I think I probably shocked my wife though, because she came to me once and said, "Who the hell is this guy on your iPhone that you've got all these photos of?" and I kind of prepped so many deepfakes that I think my wife was very suspicious of my activity early on. So once I explained it to her, she still raised an eyebrow, but I think she sees the humor in it as well. Yeah. So
the explanation doesn't really help.
That's so funny. No, it really doesn't. Exactly. Like it really doesn't. Like you could just erase all of those photos just as easily as you downloaded them again.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So I think my wife was suspicious that maybe I was having an affair or something, but then she discovered that it was me deep faking a guy that I watch about UFOs.
I mean, talk about. I mean, could you just imagine if that was just a millisecond of a thought? How crushing, how soul crushing and awful that thought, even creeping into your brain, must have been. That this mug right here is possibly stealing this beautiful Aussie, Australian, lovable, huggable koala bear away from his wife and children.
Exactly. Well, and then she kind of got the shits with me when I took it to extremes and got the loop face out. So, that really put her over the edge for a bit. But I talked it down. And,
it looked like you actually had a mask, like one of those surgical masks underneath that. Does that imply that you actually wear that out in public?
I do. That was my Halloween mask. I went trick or treating with my daughter, and
funny. People were like, "Who are you?
Who the f is this guy?"
Yeah. Oh my god.
So again, getting the word out on the street about UCR.
That's a great way.
I love it, man, dude. Yeah, and they're always such creative little ways. All right, so but how did you get into, I guess, what was the beginning for you? What's your sort of your origin story with the topic? I know, I mean, you said in your bio, it's UFOs and Bigfoot. And I think that's definitely where I started, those paranormal books in the public library or your school library, those like 5 or 6 books that they have on the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, UFOs, Bigfoot, and the Loch Ness Monster, and then ghosts, like those were like the books. So, how did you get into this?
I have to thank our late friend Leonard Nimoy, because the In Search Of series that he did was incredible, and it just fascinated. I mean, his voice was so that level of intrigue, and that just sucked me right in from a very young age. So I was kind of hooked when I saw my first episode of, I think, Bigfoot on In Search Of, and then I just I've been a magnet to horror movies and sci-fi ever since I was a kid. The first horror movie that I ever saw was John Carpenter's The Thing, with Kurt Russell, who I'm a huge fan of. And I saw that it came out in 1982, and I saw that when I was probably 5 or 6 or something, and it scared the living crap out of me, but I was obsessed with it as well. And I just kind of had that interest in that kind of genre going forward. And then when I was a young boy, my dad took me to my first UFO exhibition. There was an exhibition in Sydney, where I lived for many years, grew up in Sydney. And I remember there was a big blow up, a canvas of the McMinnville photo. And I just stared at that photo, would have been for a good 10, 15 minutes, and just like trying to understand how a magic trick or an illusion works. Just look at it and think, is that real? And if so, how does it do what it does? So that really kind of sparked my interest from a young age. And then growing up as a teenager, got into the X-Files and reading 14 Times and learning about Bob Lazar after the Knapp interview came out in '89. And then my interest kind of ebbed and flowed over the years, but it really my excitement was really reinvigorated again, I guess, like much of you, perhaps, with the 2017 articles, the New York Times articles. And then I just kind of followed the topic, and I think a friend introduced me to Spotify. I'd never heard of Spotify before, and I stumbled across Jimmy Church, because I knew that he had been on Coast to Coast Radio AM doing some hosting gigs, and from there it kind of just snowballed into this huge appetite for it, and I've been heavily entrenched in the topic ever since, just soaking up as much information as I can and being a sponge. So and that's again one of the reasons why I love tuning into UCI every week, is because you have such a diverse cross-section of guests with different expertise and skill sets and stories. And I mean, look at where we are today compared to 20 years ago. Like I lived in LA for a year, 2003, 2004, and the same year as the Nimitz incident, coincidentally. And back then, if you were interested in the topic, who would you talk to about? You'd go to a conference, you'd maybe get in some crappy online chat room, or if you were using AIM, America Online Instant Messenger, you'd be using that to have a chat. Whereas, I mean, there was no YouTube live streams back then, or Twitter. We're so privileged to live in the day and age that we do now, that we can just be connected and engaged and just having these conversations on this topic. I think we live in the most exciting time, certainly in my 43 years. And we're only just getting started too. So the last 4 years has just been such an exciting time, and I think there's a lot to look forward to.
Well, Kashi Chris.
Hey, Kashi Chris.
Hello,
my Yoda from another mother. We're deep-faking brethren.
And also we've got John Greenwald is in the house. Says, anyone remember UFO chats on IRC? Using MIRC. I'm aging myself.
Internet relay
I loved
chat.
it.
Yes, way back in the beginning of things.
Yeah, I didn't use IRC. AIM was my first. Yeah, that predated AIM. That's what that's my era right there, is AOL Instant Messenger for sure.
Yeah.
Well, did you guys have go for it, rather? Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's
I'm
a
curious
long-winded
about your.
answer, I guess, into how.
No, that was beautiful. I loved it. Thank you.
I'm curious about your interest in Bigfoot. You know, there's the Bigfoot is big out in the Pacific Northwest where I'm from, and in Siberia you have the Yeti and other things. Is there any indigenous Bigfoot-like creature that's rumored to be around Australia or any other cryptids down there?
You stole my
Yeah, there is.
question.
Again, been a big fan of and intrigued by Bigfoot ever since I saw that first In Search Of episode with Leonard Nimoy. And yes, so there is legend of a bipedal hominid creature in Australia called the Yowie, which is actually a deviation from the original term that the Indigenous Australian or the Aboriginal Indigenous people of Australia called as the word that they used was then the slang was then brought in by the English when the settlers, as they called it, the Yahoo, and then it became the Yowie. So, but I mean, it's the same. I think it's the same word, different terms, but for the same thing, seen across all corners of the globe in remote wilderness. You have Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Yeti, Yowie, skunk ape. And it's a really fascinating topic because there are some people that are very, very, they have wonderful scientific minds that are actually taking that topic seriously, like Dr. Professor Jeffrey Meldrum out of, I can't remember what university he works out of, but he studies a lot of footprint casts, and he subscribes to the notion that there is potentially an undiscovered, bipedal hominid or primate creature out there that is evading human detection and could be an evolutionary skip or part of the missing link, or could be potentially remnants of a Gigantopithecus creature. So. And I mean the famous Patterson Gimlin film, the Paddy creature, to this day has never been formally debunked, and that is one of the most intriguing pieces of visual evidence that exists on the Bigfoot topic. So I find it as intriguing as the UAP topic because it's just so cloaked in mystery.
I think the thing for Bigfoot on me is what's that guy's name? I think he had a show called The Survival Man or something on Discovery Channel.
The Bear Grylls?
But not Bear Grylls, the other guy. He was like more hardcore. There was no film crew with this guy. He filmed it all himself. I'm forgetting his name. I'm sure somebody in the chat will put it up there. But he's the kind of guy who's like, okay, drop me off in the middle of nowhere. I have to survive this for, I think, a week or 2 weeks. Les Stroud, that's who it is. Matthew Rat, Survivor Man, that's his name. I knew somebody would have it. Thank you, my friend. So Les Stroud, so he stopped doing his reality show, which was very popular. It's one of my favorite ones. And he started hunting for Bigfoot. And I think he definitely spent his own money. He filmed it the same way that he did Survivor Man. And I don't think he's found anything yet. I think he's heard some noises. He's called at some creatures, but I'm like, I thought for sure if there was anybody who was going to at least get a good picture or find Bigfoot, it was Les Stroud. And he hasn't found one yet.
That's the thing that frustrates me too about some of the shows there. They're like Finding Bigfoot has done so incredibly well, and how many seasons have they done now, and they haven't found Bigfoot. I think
you did say Finding Bigfoot, so I will say I've had a few interviews with Cliff Brackman, who is on that show, and he takes a very scientific viewpoint, like you were talking about, like a possible, just not the spooky, related to UFOs or ghost sightings, just, purely biological study of, finding new species, right? And he actually helped to found or was part of the Orang Pandek project, which is centered around the study of this like kind of cool monkey with red fur that I'd have to, I don't want to say much more because I'll say something totally incorrect. But I will say it's like, when we did the Skinwalker Ranch review, Finding Bigfoot is super edited and is definitely an entertainment show. But I will say for Cliff, like, he is a true Bigfoot hunter, and they have a whole museum. It's the Bigfoot, I don't know what it's called, but I think it's in Oregon, dedicated. It has different, pieces of evidence and displays and things. And his wife is really creative and talented too. So just a shout out to Cliff and some just behind the scenes. I think Cliff's pretty aware that the show is, it's a TV show.
Yeah. Well, it's like it's like Oak Island. I think they want to. I think they want to kind of drag that money chain along for as far as it can go. But one of the things I will say about Finding Bigfoot is they have a really cool, diverse set of researchers that I would compare to very much you guys. You each have your own personality and flair that you bring to the conversation. Jane, you've got the journalistic background. Rather, you just want to know how shit works. And you, Luis, you've got the charisma, and you bring a lot of the humor, and you take the topic seriously, but not yourself. So you each bring your own flair and style to the conversation. And with Michael Mataluni, science and technology, and how that impacts society and the greater good of future and so on. So I think that's why UCR and Singularity Lab and your channels work, is because you each bring that interesting, diverse, and engaging personality to the conversation.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, that's lucky. That wasn't by design. We just got lucky, that everybody had the expertises that they do, and I primarily brought everyone on just because I appreciated their viewpoints and how it checks my belief systems, even though I don't like to think of them as belief systems, but I clearly have belief systems. And it's a good check to me. So I could always just try and stay rational about things, and try and have as much as a neutral position on things as I can. But I tend to believe some of this stuff because again, I can't separate that personal experience sometimes from some of these things that really ring true to that. But
and look, we all bring our own biases to the conversation, but and there have been so many times when I've watched a guest on your show where I've thought, shit, I didn't think of that way, and then I've kind of start thinking, well, maybe that there is a lot of sense behind that, and then I'll watch Frank Milburn a week later, and that will kind of just change my mind altogether on something. So you put the information out there, and then you basically, I do with what that information I wish, and come up with my own conclusions. So I like the fact that you don't push any of your beliefs. You're not trying to make anyone believe anything. You're just putting the information out there for people to digest and come to their own conclusions on. So and I think that's a credit to you for taking that approach.
Well, that kind of begs the question: do you have any personal experiences, or have you have any? What's your own kind of take on what's going on here?
Sadly, no. I would love to have a sighting. I think that would just be one big item on my bucket list that I could tick off, just from the intrigue perspective. But I've never, sadly, had any UAP or UFO sightings. I've never seen a Bigfoot in my hiking days. I did experience something strange when I was working on a short film that I did a number of years ago, which was actually on the Yowie in Australia, and I was editing countless hours in front of the computer. So maybe the mind-numbing editing had maybe contributed, but I had a tall glass of water on my table, and I noticed there was movement to the side of my eye, and the glass just literally moved a couple of centimeters to the left, and I thought, what the hell's going on? It was some unknown telekinetic force going on. And then I jumped online and did some homework and realized that it might have just been the condensation underneath the glass that had shifted it across. So there was a very prosaic explanation, but it still freaked me out a bit.
That I remember the first time that happened to me. When the condensation, if the table's not level, the glass will begin to slide. And if you're not really paying attention and you don't notice the water on the table, you would think it was a ghost moving your cup. Yeah, that's pretty wild. That freaked me out the first time that happened to me too.
Yeah. So, and I think Mick West did a video not long ago on something to that effect. He was showing how exactly what you just described. So,
Yeah.
so no, to answer your question, no, I haven't had any experiences, but my family has a unique connection to this topic, though. My late uncle on my father's side, a number of years ago, authored a book called Majestic 12, which is a work of fiction, which is kind of like how would I describe it? It's kind of like Raiders of the Lost Ark meets the Da Vinci Code meets the X-Files. So it's kind of a mix of those three. And on my mother's side, my uncle, I only learned about this some years ago. He worked at the long-range weapons establishment in Woomera in South Australia. And if Woomera sounds familiar, it should, because it's featured frequently in Ross's book. It's a military installation where there were a lot of guided missile testing and missile trials back in the 50s and 60s. And my uncle, Des Barnsley, was a project manager for a lot of the testing and the trials at that top secret facility. And in 1967, he was the project lead for what was called RESAT, W-R-E-S-A-T, the first satellite that Australia put into orbit. And that facility has been, there have been countless sightings over the years, the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, of glowing orbs, anomalous craft, cigar-shaped craft that move at incredible speeds, and all of the reports are publicly accessible and publicly available through the National Archives of Australia. So I was really intrigued when I discovered that, and I read about it in Ross's book, because I didn't really know much about it, and that's why. And I'm hoping to include some of that information in an upcoming episode of the new channel that I've launched, the Unexplained Rundown. So so a unique and odd connection.
Can you still talk to those family members today, or?
So unfortunately, my both of my uncles passed away. Des, who worked at Woomera, he passed away in 2013. But his wife, my aunt, Barbara, she's still alive. So I'm planning on reaching out to her and trying to pick her brain, or a lengthy discussion as to whether or not my uncle Des had any conversations with her ever about any unusual aerial sightings. UAS is what the Royal Australian Air Force refers to them, has referred to them in the past in Australia, as opposed to UFO. Just to see if she ever had heard anything from Des as to any sightings or anomalous activity at that military site.
So UAS is unidentified aerial sighting?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I want to get into the Unexplained Rundown before we hit the top of the hour, but I am curious. This question does come up a lot on this show. What does your wife think about this obsession?
She, again, when she saw the enormous number of deepfake photos of you, Louise, and Rather and Michael, she was a little bit perplexed, but she finds it to be an intriguing and fascinating topic as well. We've watched a couple of documentaries on Netflix, and in Australia, only I think it was last week or the week before, one of the major free-to-air networks here ran a 60-minute program dedicated to UAP and what's been happening. I think they caught wind of the success that Ross had with his 7 Spotlight UAP program, so they're kind of jumping on the bandwagon, which is good to see. So she sat down and watched that with me, and she found it to be incredibly intriguing and fascinating. So I think she's probably a little bit peeved with the amount of time that maybe I invest in reading about it and watching UCR. So thankfully I can watch it on demand at night before I go to bed. But she's come around. I think she knows how fascinated I am by the subject matter. After the Big Phone Home 2, I was in a position where I felt like I could come out and tell people about it if they were interested. And so I've told family members, I've told friends. Some have kind of gone to the ridicule factor, and the stigma is well and truly alive. But thanks to you guys and what you did with the Big Phone Home 2, and really trying to encourage citizen activism, that empowered me to kind of come out of my shell and not just engage my elected representatives, but to feel comfortable, talking about it in this environment, safety in numbers, and talking about it with family members and friends. So,
what about coworkers?
Co-workers, I haven't. There's one or two that I'm very friendly with that I've talked to. I mean, I work exclusively from home. I'm a work from home employee. A lot of my colleagues are dispersed geographically around the country and in the United States. But there's a few colleagues that I'm close to that I've kind of mentioned it, passing comment, and they also have listened to Coast Radio AM. And so, kind of comfort in numbers and strength in numbers. But there's a few that I haven't really advertised the Unexplained Rundown with anyone that I work with. I've just kind of kept it limited to this community and family and friends, because we all, no matter how much you can deny it, we all fear judgment. No one wants to be judged and ridiculed, and so I think there's safety in numbers in having these conversations with like-minded folk, or those folks that are open-minded to just having the conversation. So they're the ones that I feel comfortable to talk to about it.
Well, you said you were bringing it up with family earlier, and you were having conversations now with them. How are those conversations going? Just out of curiosity, when you do bring it up.
So I was surprised. There's a few that are actually wanting to learn more, and they're really keen. So I'm having a round of golf with a friend of mine, his father, who's also very interested in the UFO topic, and he wants to pick my brain on things that I've read and what I'm covering on my YouTube channel. And my mum, she kind of goes down the conspiracy theory path. So I think she's probably not as she's a bit more nuts and bolts, and I don't think she is as open-minded to the topic as, say, some of my other family members. But each to their own. I never kind of press my beliefs on anyone if they're open to having a conversation and learning about what I think, so they can see where I'm coming from. Yeah, great. That's all that you can do.
I love it. That's awesome. Rather, did you have a question?
Well, kind of getting back to that Yowie movie that you were talking about. How recent was that, and can we find that anywhere?
You can. It's probably somewhere on YouTube. It was from my very early days for the early foray into acting and filmmaking. So yes, I think it's somewhere on my YouTube channel where you can look at a trailer that I made, and then there's a link to the longer video, the longer short film itself. So, but it was a lot of fun because that's really, I've always had an interest in filmmaking, but I never studied it at college, university. It was always something that I kind of very guerrilla filmmaking style, where you kind of just learn on the job and you jump in and do it. But in 2011, I did take my interest in filmmaking to formal education, and I studied at film school in directing for the screen. So I'm always interested to learn of your stories, Luis, about how you do on the casting call circuit and the callbacks and on the job, because it's a really cool and interesting industry, and there is so much that goes into the production of whether it be a short film or a live stream or a major motion picture, and no one really has a true appreciation of how much energy and effort goes into it unless you're actually living and breathing it. So that's why I said, off the air before, that I really, appreciate the hard work that you invest into the show, because it's not easy. It's a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that people take for granted, they don't know about, that goes into the success of a live stream or a short film. So credit to you guys for continuing to invest the energy and effort that you do.
Thank you. It's you don't know until you do it. you know, or until you try it. And I mean, you know, just trying to stay consistent is probably one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah.
You know, and being consistent when nobody watches your stuff, that's tough, you know.
Yeah, it's
And I
like,
mean, not like we've got we've got 120 people here. Thank you guys for being here. Like, share, subscribe. You know, but we're not like Joe Rogan or anybody like that. We're not even, you know, Jimmy Church, and there's a ton of people that are doing shows 5 days a week. I mean, you know, Spaced Out Radio does it 5. He starts a show at midnight.
Yeah.
And he goes for 3 hours. That's crazy.
I mean,
Crazy.
that's a long time not to go to the toilet, if you ask me. But you know, I don't know how he does
Well,
it.
he's got a break every, I think, half
His
hour.
little radio
He's got-
break.
he's
That's
got a
right.
break. Yeah. So,
But I mean, you guys go the full 2 hours without a break, and that's why I was amazed at the longevity you had during the Big Phone Home 2. I mean, I could see how spent you guys were at the end of that, because that just ripped the shit out of you, to be honest. I mean, it's
insane.
as fun as it looked, and I'm sure it was. You also just took it out of you as well. So
yeah.
But yes, but to answer your question, rather, because I know I go on long-winded tangents, it is somewhere available on my on my YouTube channel, and I still have a fascination in that topic. I've just kind of putting more attention in the UAP topic for the moment.
Well, speaking of your YouTube channel, the Unexplained Rundown, which you guys can see here, I put the link in the chat. It's also, you can find it in the description below under Grant's link there. And if you haven't already, guys, go subscribe. So tell us about this, man. What inspired you to start the channel? What are you trying to do with this show?
Yeah, so I've had the YouTube channel for years, and there's a couple of short films that I've got on there that I did when I was at film school. But really, I have to thank Rather for the one that inspired me, because I've made an effort to watch all of Rather's videos on his channel. I really enjoy them. They're not too overwhelming. They're short, they're succinct, and they have a ton of great valuable information. And I really just enjoyed the approach that you took on digging into those topics. And I thought, wow, it'd be really cool to delve into those topics and find answers to questions that I have in an Australian context. Because when I was watching the Big Phone Home 2 with you guys, I was very much trying to follow your lead and the lead of everyone else, and be advocates for the cause and reach out to elected representatives. And I thought, well, hang on a sec. Well, what's Australia doing about the UAP issue? What level of engagement is the Australian government having on this topic? So I started reaching out to some of my elected representatives, and there is one senator out of all of the senators in Australia. There is one, and his name is Senator Peter Whish-Wilson from the state of Tasmania. And in October of last year, at what's called a Senate estimates meeting, and a Senate estimates meeting is kind of like when they convene and they do estimates of government expenditure for the various departments. And so he had the courage and gumption to raise the UAP topic and asked the Chief of Air Force, the Chief Air Marshal Mel Hupfield, about UAP. He wanted to know, had the Air Force and the Department of Defense read the UAP preliminary assessment? And pretty much to be expected, no. The Air Force had not, and the Department of Defense in Australia had not formally read the UAP preliminary assessment. And his question was, well, our staunch ally and our friends abroad in the US are taking this topic very seriously. Why isn't the Australian government taking this topic seriously? What safeguards are in place to mitigate the risks inherent, or potential threats posed by UAP for civilian and military aircraft? And there is currently no reporting mechanism in place for members of the Australian Defence Force to report anomalous objects that they encounter in the sky. And I think that's a real shame, because they have invested time, energy, and effort, investigating unusual aerial sightings, UAS, back in the 50s and 60s, all the way up through to the 1990s. In 1996, the Royal Australian Air Force terminated its program for investigating UAS, and they actually now refer anyone that has a sighting to their local police authorities, or to actually engage civilian UFO organizations like MUFON. And so I had some serious questions. I was like, well, hang on, if the Department of Defence in Australia and the Royal Australian Air Force is not investigating this topic, which our US friends are taking very seriously, and from 2004 to the start of this year, I had reached out to the Australian head of MUFON, and there was just shy of 1,150 reportings to MUFON in Australia in that date range, the same date range that the UAPTF examined. So I thought, even if 0.5% of those 1,150 sightings turned out to be a true unknown and anonymous, well, that's something that the Australian Department of Defence and Air Force, particularly if they're striving for air dominance and they want to know what's in our skies and protect our skies, they should be looking into it. And they're currently not. So I've been had regular engagement with Senator Wish Wilson on this topic, trying to present questions to the Australian Air Force and the Department of Defence as to, well, why are you not doing anything? Because our friends overseas in the US currently are, and Australia is a member of the Five Eyes, and the Five Eyes share signals intelligence. So if the US is going to come to Australia, later this year or next year, as mandated by the Gillibrand Amendment, that says we're going to have conversations with our allies to see what they know about the UAP topic. If the US reaches out to Australia and says, "Hey, we know that you guys have had some strange sightings at some of the joint US and Australian military installations out in the desert. Can you give us a bit more information?" And if Australia's going to come back and say, "Oh, sorry, no, we don't know anything about it. We haven't even read the UAP preliminary assessment, and we don't look into the topic," well, they're going to have egg on their face and not going to provide any intel whatsoever. So I think there is a real missed opportunity.
Is that in the Gillibrand amendment to mandate to reach out to the allies? So
there is some clauses, and I don't know the specific clause, but there is in the legislation there is reference to not just foreign adversaries to explore and investigate what potential technology they may be exploiting or developing, but also essentially having conversations with and engaging their allies on the UAP topic. And Australia's not going to be able to provide any information because they're saying, well, Australia's saying, "Move along, folks, there's nothing to see here." Well, how would you know? You're not even looking. So.
And when was that Australian program terminated? I know you said the date, but I think I missed it. And kind of leading on to that, have you read that Australian declassified UFO report from like the 50s to the 70s, when they were talking about seeing like aliens that look like cats and all other sorts of crazy stuff? So it sounds like there's stuff happening down there.
I haven't. There's a ton of publicly available and readily accessible reports through the National Australia, the National Archives of Australia, and I'm slowly working my way through some of them that are focused on where my uncle worked. But the Royal Australian Air Force formally terminated its unusual aerial sightings policy in 2013, and they stopped formally taking reports in 1996. So it was actually the Department of Defence Chief of Air Force signed off on a document formally terminating that UAS policy in 2013. But I haven't heard of that report or know anything about that, rather. So I'll be interested to get some links from you on that one.
Yeah, I'll definitely send you a link. You kind of made a little bit of the news before the preliminary assessment of UAP came out here a year or two ago.
And so what's frustrating for me is that the mainstream media in Australia is now taking more of an interest in this topic than the Australian government, spearheaded and championed by Ross Coulthart, who I think's done a wonderful job from an investigative journalism standpoint. Both he and George Knapp, I think, are the pioneers of investigating this topic. And since the release of Ross's book In Plain Sight and the documentaries that he produced and led for the Seven Spotlight program, and now this other mainstream media free-to-air network has jumped on the bandwagon and put out its own program, which heavily relied on testimony from Ryan Graves. So that was shown on Australian television last week. So now it's and both of the hosts of those programs. So Ross Coulthard was a former reporter; he's alumni of 60 Minutes Australia, and Liz Hayes, who was the host of this program that focused on UAP on their network last week. She's a current host of 60 Minutes Australia. So you've got some very credible folks that are talking about this topic, getting it out into the mainstream, but yet the government is still, playing the ignorance is bliss card, which is disappointing.
Other than the response with your senator, have there been any other responses to any other letters you sent?
So I've had a couple other responses that have confirmed their support for the questions that Senator Wish Wilson is asking, but have encouraged me to continue in a dialogue with Senator Wish Wilson. So I suspect they're just too focused and worried about other things that are important to their constituents. So they're kind of pushing me to where the champion of the effort already sits, which is Senator Wish Wilson. There have been a few that I've reached out to who have come back and said, look, it's not something that we're looking at, but I would encourage you to reach out to this individual. So there have been a few that just flatly haven't responded at all, which is always the case. But there have been others that have recommended I reach out to other key players in the government, like the defense minister, to make inquiries as to what the Department of Defense is doing to safeguard against these potential threats that UAPs can pose in an aviation context in Australia.
It's weird. It's almost as if the Australian media is covering it more in a longer format as well than the U.S. media is. I'm curious to know when that's going to catch up. But the thing I haven't seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is there any sort of instances where, because like we've got TMZ out here, paparazzi, and they'll see Senator Rubio or Gillibrand or whoever that Burchett, whoever is commented on this in the past, and they'll ask them questions. Is there any instances like that where the media has caught one of these Australian senators or and asked them, hey, what's the deal? Because I haven't noticed that in any of the 60 Minutes pieces. They haven't. I could be wrong, but I haven't seen them talk to any government officials on the topic.
Yes. So sadly, no. So the engagement that the mainstream media in Australia is having with elected officials is on these programs. So Ross interviewed. I think Senator Wish Wilson was featured in Ross's documentary early on. So it's only in I think an official kind of formal capacity. There's very little of that. Maybe it's because the mainstream media thinks so little of our politicians, and it's not as entertaining as politics in the US, that we don't have journalists going up to politicians on the street unless there's some debacle or embarrassment that falls on the government. That there isn't any journalist that's engaging government officials as frequently as you would see in the US with the TMZs and other journalists and so on. So sadly, not yet. Hopefully that will change as more and more people catch on to this topic, because I think and I support kind of Ross's sentiment here that he's just waiting for mainstream media to, quote, get off its fat ass and start taking the topic seriously and do their homework on this topic, because it could be the most important and most fruitful topic for journalism ever.
You know what I kind of see here, Grant, is an opportunity. I don't know how far away you live from like a state capital. I don't know how the politics works in Australia. I'm sorry, but I feel like my perception of Australia is that it might be, people are polite. I don't know why I get that perception, but I feel like if you did engage a lawmaker coming out of a federal building, and you said, "Hey, can I just ask you a couple of questions on the record because I'm curious about some stuff?" What do you think their reaction would be, or would it be like, piss off, mate? you know?
Depends who you approach, I guess. I think if
Yeah.
it's colleagues of Senator Wish Wilson who are in the Greens party, I think they would be more amenable to having the conversation. But then there are others that simply don't even know about it because it was only raised in this official setting in October of last year. So there's only a small handful of senators that were probably privy to hearing the questions that Senator Wish Wilson posed in the Senate estimates hearing. So, but I think you're right. I think there is an opportunity for greater engagement of our elected representatives in Australia to kind of take the big phone home on a global scale. And I know that the UK is having similar issues where it's really challenging to engage their elected representatives because they don't want to touch the topic because of the political stigma that's associated with it. So unfortunately, that's, I think, the way things have always worked, is that Australia, the UK, allies of the US, will always wait for the US to take lead on a big issue. And when they do, and it starts to get some traction, they'll fall into line. So I'm confident that's the path that Australia will go. But it never hurts to try and fast track the process and get them on side a little quicker. So that's why anything that I can do to support the efforts of the Big Phone Home 3 from an Australian context, I'll put my hand up and say I'm there 100%, because I think it's I really value the work that you and your listeners and viewers are doing in reaching out to their elected representatives. And I think we should all be doing it. It doesn't take a lot. Call, email, tweet. You're very accustomed to having no said to you in your line of work, Luis, with acting. So you're going to have pushback, and you're going to have people that don't want to talk to you and don't reply to you, don't return your call. But it's not about your ego. It's about the topic. So I don't take it personally if someone doesn't bother responding to me or just kind of fobs me off somewhere else. I'll say, all right, well, on to the next opportunity.
Yeah. The word no, doesn't bother me, rolls right off my back now. I have, what's funny is, especially when I was in sales or like working in a restaurant, if you wanted to get a special sold, or push a nice tequila, or whatever, you have to ask 3 times. You have to get 3 no's before you get a yes. You just got to be creative with how you ask and how you present it, and I always found it fun, like challenging. And usually people do want it. They're there for an experience. They just don't understand it. And then when you give them that experience, then they're like, I get it. Okay, now I understand why I'm paying $12 more for this glass of wine with this meal. It makes total sense now. So stuff like that. But I mean, when it comes to engaging any representatives, I would say, especially if you're in another country, I think leading with, hey, did you know that the US government da 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 da, and how, as an ally of that government, are we going to respond? What are your plans as a senator to ensure that we'll be able to have information for them, or whatever the spiel is? I think if it's respectful, I have a feeling you guys would get a better. I want to even say better. I think there's even an opportunity here. Like if you have a state capital or anything like that close to you, and that the senator or congressman comes out of there, and you have an opportunity to say hello, introduce yourself, and ask a really quick, to the point question, and let them know that you might be recording them if that's what you plan to do, or you don't have to record them. You could just go and do it yourself. I mean, either way, I think we have that's a great opportunity to sort of do the Big Phone Home but in person. Show up to a town hall meeting.
Yep, I
show
totally
up to
agree.
a Facebook Live. Like we flooded that Facebook Live with Andre Carson, and that question got asked. It got asked because the community was well aware that Congress. I love the virtual town hall meetings because, you could flood it with a question, and the question most likely will get asked if people are truly interested, and they are. People are interested in this topic. Yeah. So
Well, now that COVID is kind of where I live in Melbourne, Australia, we were locked down more than any city in the entire world. So we've had some harsh restrictions throughout the last 12 to 24 months. But now a lot of those restrictions have eased, and you can go out in public and meet with people. So I think the opportunities are now there to be going out and having these conversations, face to face with people. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, all right. Grant, you want to talk some news with us?
Yeah, totally.
Let's do it. All right. So guys, obviously everyone here is pretty well aware the weekend was pretty wild with a lot of stuff. I think it all started with the Jimmy Church interview with Lou Elizondo. And then that interview got blown up because there was a couple of articles and CIA documents that were said to be classified. Turns out they weren't classified, and that set off an absolute shitstorm. Like it is, the wake of this is absolutely insane. But what's hilarious, nobody knows about this. This is really not a thing for anybody outside of this community. This is not a big deal. Nobody noticed it. Nobody's talking about it outside of hashtag UFO Twitter, outside of everybody that within the periphery of this topic. So let's just gain a little bit of perspective on this before we start talking about it. But there are very passionate arguments for both sides of this. I can see it on your face. Rather, you've already got something to say, so we'll start with you. What did you think of the weekend's events and the response and Lou Elizondo's tweet? I'll pull up Elizondo's tweet and what he said, so we can get into that as well.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest problem with what has happened isn't even, Elizondo misrepresenting evidence. It's really the ad hominem attacks that have happened to the people who have kind of pointed this out. Like it's one thing to disagree with someone and say, hey, I don't think these things matter that you're pointing out. And that's a perfectly legitimate argument. But then to, go and try to sort through everyone's Twitter history and say, hey, there's these things that you've said in your past that invalidate what they're currently saying. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And I think that, we're trying to get everyone on the same page. I think one of the coolest aspects of this topic is that it is kind of apolitical, and we don't ask our guests what they believe as far as who they support politically and stuff like that. And yeah, I think that the whole ad hominem attacks just have no place in this discussion. And yeah, maybe that's getting a little bit into the weeds of where this went, but
yeah, you went really right in there.
Top of the mind of what I've been thinking about.
You went right for it. Jane, I'm curious to know what you thought. I mean, did you even catch any of this? You're a mom. You got
completely disconnected. So Saturday, I had to volunteer for something my kid's doing all day. I had no internet. We went and visited my mom. We went to the Round Rock, Texas indoor water park. It's insane. Nobody was talking about UFOs at the water park. People from all over the world were there. It was crazy. And then we had, not to bring things down, but our eldest dog, we had to say goodbye. He's in a much.
I'm sorry to hear that.
He had a lot of pain for his whole life because he had joint and bone issues his whole life. So he's finally running. But yeah, so I've been completely disconnected, and then I did see on Twitter, I read a little bit, but I'm pretty live reacting everything. But on the surface, I definitely agree with somebody like Lou Elizondo, who is doing this many interviews, who gets so much of the opposite of the ad hominem attacks. Like, he is called a hero. Probably somebody tweets to him that he's a hero every single day. Somebody like that absolutely should be vetted and held to quite a bit of scrutiny. And so I think it's okay to be calling out these discrepancies. And it seems like Lou's acknowledging it on Twitter, but kind of not really. I don't know. I'm still seems
You're still
complicated.
catching up. All right. Well, we're gonna read this tweet. Grant, I'm curious to know what were your first thoughts on it.
I listened to the Jimmy Church interview, and I totally agree with what Rather said. I think how do the ad hominem attacks? How does it move the conversation forward? It doesn't. It's a waste of time. You're better off spending your energy focusing on what you do best. If it's research, if it's having people on your live stream, have them on your live stream. I don't think the Twitter back and forth achieves anything whatsoever. And you know, details matter. And John Greenwald has said that time and time again. Details matter. Even if it's a minor detail, it's worth clarifying it and getting some, dotting the I's and cross the T's. Because if there's nothing there, then hey, we've cleared up that little detail. If not, it should be explored. So, and I applaud John Greenwald for what he's doing. He's trying to tick those boxes and get answers to questions where details are still left unanswered.
Yeah, I can't say I disagree with anything that anybody just said. It's all very reasonable. I will say there is an element. I mean, I think both sides get those ad hominem attacks, and I agree with you, Jane. I think Lou probably gets told he's a hero 100 times a day, but there is an element that tells him he's an absolute scumbag, 10 times a day. Sure. There's that percentage of just people that absolutely loathe him. And then for John Greenwald, I'm sure the same could be said for him, where it's, I think a lot of people at the very least respect his work and see it as value on some level. And even if you say you don't, when something big drops on the Black Vault, you're going there because it's going to be well researched and at least put on the table for you to make the decision. Here's the information. You decide what you do with it. And then so I think a lot of folks do to give him that, but when he questions a figure in the community, and not in a way that's disrespectful, in a way that's just, hey, here's the questions, here's what was said, here's the documents that were referenced, here's how it's incorrect. I think that's valuable. It adds a lot of clarity, and it's exactly what we need in the community, just more clarity. The more clarity we have, the better it will be for everyone. But then again, there is an element that absolutely torches Greenwald anytime he says anything, and they're going to pull up, an interview from 10 or 15 years ago where everybody who and their mother was going on the exact same show that he went on. You have to allow for people to change philosophies, change their mind on things, grow as a human being. Sometimes people have points of view that are not good, and after some life experience and having something hit close to home and having perspective put into their life, all of a sudden their philosophy or way of thinking, their belief systems crumble, and they build up new belief systems and new ways of thinking. It doesn't it doesn't do anybody any favors on either side. I will say, as much as I've done my best to try and show that Lou Elizondo is a human being, which he is. He's got a father, he's got kids, he's got a wife, he's got a mortgage. We have dove into all of those things, as far as to even bring his dad on the show, just to see who is this guy, what kind of human is this person, and is he fallible? And the answer is yes. You can make mistakes, and I think making corrections is just as important. And having these moments where, hey, I think everybody learned a lesson here. First of all, I think the lesson is we're taking this too seriously. Like we need to have a little bit more fun with all of this. Let's just relax. Let's breathe. Okay. But at the same time, we need more clarity. and having the discussion and being lit on fire for just wanting to have the discussion is something that I've noticed more from the people who love and respect and appreciate the efforts of Lou Elizondo. I cannot tell you, like, again, coming from a guy who's trying to learn who this human is, who's met him in person, who's had a connection with him, who's really, really tried to show, not talk about the UFO stuff, not talk about any of that stuff, and show who the human is. Some of the most visceral, nastiest attacks come from people on his side of the fence. I mean, I cannot even begin to tell you, just for asking questions. And here's the thing with Lou is he's not afraid of any questions. He always says, ask me whatever you want. And when he comes on, we're going to ask him these questions and we're going to hopefully get a little bit more clarity.
And he even always says, that's a great question.
Right. But what do you got?
I think, by being so reactionary, I think they actually do their side a disservice. Because, I mean, ultimately,
yes,
this little mistake that Lou Elizondo made isn't a huge deal of like the main substantive stuff. Like we all agree that there's unidentified weird stuff going on in the sky. It does make a little bit of a difference on the, specificity on, how you take some of his other claims, but that's a very nuanced kind of view, right?
Yes, but here's the thing. He's never, ever once claimed to be a historian on this topic. Never once. So I feel like, honestly, unless he's, for example, if we find out in 5 years that the Tic Tac video, the Go Fast, the gimbal, we see the extra footage, right? We see the longer versions of the video, and it does turn out to be something like a jet or a bird or whatever these very mundane explanations that have been proposed could be. And he's seen the longer versions of these videos, but he sold it as something extraordinary. Now you have a right to be upset. Now you have a right to really be like, okay,
and even that's nuanced.
What's happening here? And even that's nuanced. I agreed. But it's nuanced with dollars behind it and research and work saying, hey, this is something extraordinary and we should pay attention, to a point where we've now got senators and congressmen looking at this. If all of that turns out to be information that's incorrect, that misled government, that's a problem. And that's a big issue. Okay, but that's not what this is. This is not knowing your history well enough, but that's coming from a person who's never claimed to be a historian. And also,
it's a little bit deeper than that, though. I do think, because it shows to his willingness potentially to lift up evidence without doing due diligence, right? So when you hear him talk about the 23-minute video and seeing a photo with inhabitants inside of it, this recent controversy makes me think that those are less likely to convince me personally. I think that they probably convinced Lou Elizondo, but things like this make it so that I can't say I trust his judgment on evidence like this 100%. I still trust that he's seen things and that he's not lying to Congress, and he's advanced this discussion immeasurably, and I'm greatly thankful for that. But it's these, when he alludes to what he's seen, it does make that a little into question.
And that's fair, but then I would say he's never told you, that I'm 100%, that I'm going to be 100% right on this,
100%. And it's really not on Lou. My problem isn't with Lou Elizondo, really. I guess it's with people who take what Lou Elizondo says and treat it as gospel. That, yes, Lou Elizondo has seen the truth. Everything that he kind of applies or alludes to is true. And I think that kind of...
I'm sorry to cut you off, but the flip side of that is also the extremists that support John Greenwald, or the extreme guys who support, Stephen Greenstreet. Like there are the element where they're putting the belief as gospel, just like you said. It is written word, and therefore, if it does not fit in this narrative, we're going to set you on fire.
Yeah, definitely. It cuts both ways. I think
Right.
there just needs to be a little bit more understanding of where everyone's coming from, and everyone doesn't have the same prior beliefs. So when you look at evidence, you're going to consider it differently as other people.
Yeah.
And there's nothing, and there's nothing wrong with questioning folks that know more information than we do. I mean, if we have questions, we want some clarity. So I don't think there's anything. There's no malice in asking, Lou Elizondo to clarify his position on a statement that he made. I mean, I truly believe that Lou Elizondo is a patriot. He has integrity. He is a wonderful advocate for the UAP topic. He's a lobbyist. He's lobbying Congress to take this topic seriously. But we don't know what his true motivations are. We know some of them. But I mean, he's even told us he's writing a book, and no one knows why he's writing the book, and he'll reveal that motivation for when the book is released. So it's naive of us to think that we know what Lou's motivation is behind everything that he's doing, and that's fine with me. I think if information is disseminated and he puts out information that we are to entertain as truth or consider as truth, we need to ask questions. If there are boxes that remain unchecked, like for John Greenwald, he had some questions that he wanted answered, so he asked them, or he raised light to those questions that he has. There's nothing wrong. It could come back and Lou Elizondo answered those questions for John Greenwald, and hey, that's the end of that conversation. On to moving the topic and the conversation forward. So I don't think there's issues with asking questions and doing it in a way that's respectful. And is we're all after the same thing. We want the truth. We want to know. The days of I want to believe are gone. I just want to know what's going on. And to get to the heart of that truth, you have to ask questions.
I want to just read what his response to everything, and then we could talk about it. But so he wrote over the weekend, it's been brought to my attention an inconsistency. And sorry, guys, if this is, hold on, let me see if I can get it a little closer for everyone to see. There we go. It's been brought to my attention an inconsistency of the Sun's article of an alleged NSA document. For the record, I never vouched for its veracity. I used it as an example of increasing government transparency over the last 4 years. I simply quoted the headline, and that is all. This is the article that he brought up on Jimmy Church, right? Rather?
Yeah.
Sorry. Let me go back. It's a 5 or 6 part tweet. Oh man, this is all messed up. Sorry guys, if you can't see this, I'm just gonna have to keep it bigger or smaller so I can get through these.
You can tell Lou Elizondo does his own Twitter feed because he hasn't figured out threading yet, which challenges me too.
We should give him the tip. He didn't put in a thread. He put them as separate tweets, but that's adorable. As I said from day one, I shall always hold myself accountable. In 2018, when I provided the briefing in Italy, within 24 hours, I issued a correction for the record, again, holding myself accountable. As for the individuals and unidentified, 2 of those individuals were indeed affiliated with the program. As for the other individual, he was looking for a job, and the 2 affiliated were considering bringing him on board. Later, did they determine he would not be a good fit? Sorry. I'm not looking to disparage anyone, but the individual who claims he was misrepresented indeed misrepresented himself. However, I have no hard feelings towards him and will spare him the unnecessary negative attention. I still don't understand all the drama, and it's unnecessary given we're all on the same team. I definitely resonate with that last part, but let's break these down, I guess, one by one. So the NSA document that he's referring to, in the Jimmy Church article. What are your thoughts? Rather, we'll go to you first. Go for it.
Well, so the headline was saying there's an NSA document that says communication with extraterrestrials, and he can't kind of push that as, hey, there's evidence that the government is looking into and investigating communicating with extraterrestrials. And if that premise is false, if you look to the actual documents, it was never classified at all. It's really just kind of a thought experiment with an answer key on how you could respond to these questions that the document poses. So it's really just kind of a training exercise and not a real statement on fact. So it was misrepresented by Lou, but he, to his credit, he acknowledges his mistake here.
You know what I think this is? Partly, for real. And I have no idea if this is fact. I am 1,000,000% speculating on this. Just FYI. Jimmy Church, I've said this here in the last couple of weeks. He is harping on the Roswell, the alien bodies, the craft. Roswell, alien bodies, craft, over and over and over. When he brought this up, this kind of felt like, look, I'm not going to give you an answer on this stuff, but here's something I read. Here's something that I read that hey, look, this is happening, and this was an actual CIA study. It was, and he said it was classified when it was not classified, and so slip of the tongue. Did he mean that on purpose? I don't know.
Was that the only thing that was that the only incorrect thing?
No, it was. I think he rather kind of nailed it. Is that he was kind of like.
I'm wondering if he really acknowledged, because based on this tweet, I have to, and I feel I'm uninformed. I need to watch the Jimmy Church clip, but here it seems a little bit defensive. For the record, I never vouched for its veracity, but you're Lou Elizondo, you're talking about this article. I'm going to assume that you, or I'm going to assume that you read the file you're talking about. It's if you didn't even read the file and you're talking about it being about ETs and classified, I think that you could at least say, I mischaracterized, I misunderstood the file. I didn't realize, I misunderstood it. I didn't read it in full. Here it's just like saying, well, why did you even bother to trust me in the first place? I just mentioned it.
I think if you're being really generous to Luis Elizondo, I think that you could make the argument that, hey, this does show that people in the CIA, NSA were thinking about aliens. Because that is true. It is about aliens. But yeah, to your point, Jane, he did preface it by saying this is really, really important. He didn't.
And I love looking at these files. That's where I come from, and I regularly make videos and articles about them. So it's so important that you don't sensationalize them, because they just forward emails to each other. Okay, so they just share newspaper articles. So if you're just saying, well, the NSA is talking about, there's so much public domain things, that could be. I'm talking about emails. That there's other places, but same idea. Where you'll have where they're just sharing different articles that anybody could read, right? So that's really different than a Project Blue Book file of an investigation of a UFO, or even a remote viewing target that was part of a training exercise, right? That's really different. And so I think that is important to distinguish, especially if we're asking for more files and more disclosure and all that. But like I said, I'm really uninformed here, and I am not a Lou Elizondo hater. I think so far his track record's been pretty decent if you consider all the interviews he's done. Think about all the things he said, the whole depth of it, and how many times he could have said the wrong thing, or for what that's worth.
It's it could. This is the first time he's brought this document up, right?
Yeah,
as far as
it's a recent Sun article.
Yeah. I'm just giving him the benefit of the doubt, just because I've had human interaction with this guy. I don't feel like he's coming from a place of ill intent. Let's just put it that way. I am a Lou Elizondo fan.
I don't. I've got bad intent.
No, I don't think. I mean, there are people that do think that, but I think they're off their rockers, and I don't think that John Greenwald thinks that. I don't know, and I'm trying to get Green Street on the show, but I don't think Green Street believes that either. I think they've just got really different ways on expressing how they feel about when people get stuff wrong. Green Street is absolutely. He is a fascinating creature to me. Like, he's on Ancient Aliens. He's doing Basement Office, and he's seeing UFOs off the coast of California. Like, he's running the gamut on this subject from top to bottom. And he's also making Mean Street memes, for Lou Elizondo. And anytime somebody says something even remotely different than what it was the first time.
And he's got a skinwalker, I think, too.
And and he definitely does. But so it's like, for me,
he is an alien, basically.
He's basically an alien. Yeah. But obviously, for me, when he goes hard on something, I'm just like, I laugh at it, because for me it's hilarious. I don't take anything he says. I won't say that. I think he's an amazing researcher. But like, when he does those memes, I don't take offense to those, because for me, that's humor. That's bringing light to the topic. That's saying, hey, don't take yourself so damn seriously. So for me, the memes are fine. Like, they're hilarious, and even if they make fun of me, he's made fun of me. Like, I don't have an issue with it. And he brought up some good points, but I think these points that we're bringing up are being made into such a huge deal when they're really not. They have they have got nothing to do with Congress. They've got nothing to do with moving the ball forward in terms of the conversation going forward with science and individual entities like Galileo Project and yada yada. The list goes on. This we're gonna not even remember this in 3 weeks or next week, when something huge happens or some political movement happens on this that is massive, or the new UFO office gets made, whatever it's going to be called. There are going to be a billion other things, and this will be a blip, and not even a blip on the conversation as a whole. But it's important to just be like, hey, look, this is where we found an inconsistency. Let's just mentally check this and say, okay, like, we've made mistakes. This is how we've made them. But, hey, it happens. As far as I'm concerned, pass, because I think there's a lot more, there's bigger discussions happening. But okay, so that has to do with the Sun article. And then there was another thing that somebody else brought up about his appearance on CNN and the graphic that CNN used, or the article that they cited in that interview, and him sort of confirming the veracity of that article, kind of like what he did with Jimmy Church. And I don't think he even knew that picture or those things were coming up when he's doing a live spot for a network television show. They usually spring those things on you. But what are your thoughts, rather?
Well, yeah, I disagree with that, because it did seem clear that, these were documents and graphics that Luis Elizondo gave to CNN, because, CNN said, hey, this is a document that you gave to us, and
did they say that?
Yeah, I believe they did. But I don't think that this is as big of a deal. This is kind of one of those instances where it was a CIA document talking about a lozenge type craft. And I think it was, Jane, exactly what you were talking about earlier, where this was kind of a CIA document, but it was a CIA document of like other news reports. But, I don't, the context that Elizondo was trying to get across in the CNN article was essentially just that there have been sightings of things like Tic Tacs throughout the history. And I think that decades is evidence of that. So I don't really have that big of a problem with the CNN article or appearance.
Yeah. And that, I mean, again, that happened a while ago. And I think people are just propping that up as like, you see, he lied. He lied. So therefore everything is a lie. And it's just, I'm sorry.
It's a tightrope of, if we believe, which I do, that Luis Elizondo has seen more than we do and has more information than we do. When he's trying to convey that to us, he's pulling from a limited source of documents. He can't show us what is classified. So it kind of makes sense that he might make a little bit of a stretch to further his points and something like, hey, we have been seeing historic instances like this.
Yeah.
Although I can see how it is, I could see how people would have problems with it as well.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess the last thing we'll talk about, and then we'll move on from this, is he referenced Unidentified, the show, and that gentleman who put a Reddit out saying that he was the guy who was blanked out. He listed who he worked for, what he was doing there, and how he didn't know he was being filmed during that process. It's a wonderful story. It's a real page turner, but it's anonymous. I don't know who this person is. He sounds credible, but I have a feeling there's more than just his side of the story. And just like I have a feeling there's more to Lou's side of the story, I'm sure there's a production version of this story. That's really the one I want to hear, because production is the one who put the cameras there. They put the microphones there. Usually when you film stuff like that, it's not unknown. I mean, it's a reality show. I got a tough time believing Mr. Anonymous, but I will sort of put that on the back burner and see if he ever comes to light who this guy is. But I honestly, I don't care. Like, I don't give a shit. This has got nothing to do. Can I put this on the desk of a senator? No? Okay, let's move on. That's the way I feel about it. What do you got, rather?
I think it's an interesting story. I am curious about it, but yeah, I don't think that I have enough information to believe what. I don't think that Lou, regardless of what you believe, I don't think that there's any evidence showing that Lou Elizondo is responsible for anything that happened here. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we get more. John Greenwald is telling us that this guy might not be anonymous for long.
Well, yeah. Well, you know what? I believe Greenwald. Maybe he won't be. And great. I can't wait to hear his side of the story. I've been meaning to ask John to come on the show. Because we should have John on. We should ask him these questions. Yeah. I'm sure he would have like great perspective, because I'm curious to know if he thinks from a production standpoint that they secretly filmed somebody without telling them like that. It did look in the shot as if it kind of was filmed secretly, but I don't know if that was done for dramatic purposes or if that was done, because if they're having an intimate conversation knowing that their faces are going to be blanked out, but that they are being recorded, and they're in the state of California, if I'm not mistaken, when that took place, and you cannot record people in the state of California without them knowing about it. I mean, there might be a sneaky way of doing that by like I've seen productions put a piece of paper on the front door where people walk in saying, hey, you're walking into a filming production. There's a chance that you can get caught on film and end up on so-and-so and so. If you'd like your identity removed, please email yada, 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 yada. And then that could be a way to get around it. But in the state of California, I'm pretty damn sure you're not allowed to record anything without an audio recording. I can't record myself calling a senator. I can't record myself having a private conversation with somebody. Even if I tell them, I can't record it and use it as, in the court of law or against somebody. Like if I took a recording of us, and then said, oh, listen to this, listen to what Rather said behind the scenes on my show, you could turn around and sue me in the state of California and I'd lose every time. So
thank God that's the only thing keeping those tapes secret.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But I'm John Greenwald, I'm going to email you after the show and see if we can get you on, because I really, and also John's just been dropping a whole bunch of stuff. It's insane how much he's been putting out there. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about with him. Go ahead, Grant.
I was just going to say, I think to John's credit, like I think the intention of his post was to highlight that there is a trend of misrepresentation, whether it be intentional or unintentional, historically. I mean, dating back to the chain of custody of the videos that were released to TTSA. So I think there's value in having ask those questions, and as John is doing it in a way that is respectful, but he's just calling attention to it. Is it a massive piece of the picture that's going to move the conversation forward? Maybe not, but I think it's still important to seek clarification on the details where there is discrepancy in understanding or not quite sure of what the facts are. So I think I certainly applaud John for his efforts in seeking answers to those questions that he's got pertaining to those.
John, by the way, says you can legally show the footage in California if a face is blurred. I worked rights and clearances when I produced and directed, even for A&E. But do you have to have? Do they need to be aware that their voice is being recorded? That's my question. Does the subject need to be aware that they're being recorded not only on film, but that their audio is being recorded and used in a television show, even if the face is blanked out? I'm curious. I don't know. I'm sure he'll get back to us on that. Dan James with a $5 donation. Thank you so much. Well, if someone's goal was to pull attention away from from UAP and make Lou the story, mission accomplished. Everyone's on the bandwagon and pulling focus. I think there's two bandwagons on this, and they're both full, and they're both yelling at the top of their lungs, and they're both ridiculous. Both of them. Both sides of this are being ridiculous. I say point it out, make the point, and then move on.
Exactly.
I agree. I agree more with Greenwald's style and how he does that versus Green Street. Green Street's humor and cuts right to the bone and gives zero fucks about anything, whereas Greenwald is a little bit more tactful, respectful, and just states the facts and what's happening. So doesn't mean, however you decide to take your information is completely up to you. Doesn't invalidate one or the other. Both of them are making good points, but how they present it is going to rub people the wrong way, which creates bandwagons, and then, there's going to, these 5 tweets created a bandwagon for Lou, and I think it's noise on both sides. And at the end of this, nobody's going to remember this. And it causes division. It's like a half step backwards, almost a little bit. It kind of shows that we're not ready for this, because there's going to be one day where a fact on this topic is put on the table, and it's going to upset a certain segment of this discussion, and they're going to be incredibly angry. If you don't want that to happen to you, if you think that might be you, step back, relax, go maybe try something else for a little bit. Because if this turns out to be not what I thought it is, I'm going to be okay. I'll still have improv shows to do. I'll still have auditions to go on. I'll still have everything that I was doing before, I'll be doing the day after. And if it's the flip where I am right, my belief systems are correct, I'm curious to see what happens to a Mick West. What does he do? Does he get upset? Does he dig his heels in, or does he accept the reality? I don't know. But one day this fact will be put on the table, and depending on what your expectations are, is how you're going to react to this. And I guess my best suggestion is just manage your expectations.
That's why I'm wearing this today. So I watched Little Mermaid last night, and was at a water park. But remember the fork, right? She finds the fork from the humans, and she thinks it's to brush your hair, and she calls it a dinglehopper, right? And then she finally meets the humans and is embarrassed because it's actually to eat food. Like, how stupid, and somebody she trusted told her that it was Scuttle the seagull. Like, that was her source of information. He'd met the humans, he'd interacted with her, he knew way more than her. He lived on the surface, and so she had to literally meet a human to find that out. And we may never meet the aliens. We talk about facts about something this big. This is way too big. I mean, it doesn't matter. Think about the number of cases, the types of the shapes of UFOs, all the history. Like, if none of them were extraterrestrial, tomorrow something could show up, right, in our skies. So it's just like the ocean. I mean, we're never going to have all the answers here. So I would just have that spirit of, maybe the mermaids are real, maybe they're not, maybe anything's possible. Like you just have to embrace it, the unknown.
Yeah, this topic, I think of this topic as it's a 10,000 piece puzzle, and there's a mosaic at the end of it when you put all the pieces together. We only have access to the low hanging fruit, which are the corner pieces of the puzzle. There are other folks like Lou and others, that have access to more information than him, that have access to more pieces that start to form part of a picture. So we will never, have access to. No one will ever have access to all the pieces. I don't think anyone will ever have a complete puzzle, but there are certainly folks that have more pieces of the puzzle than others to form part of that mosaic that is the UAP topic.
John Greenwald added on after, let me just go ahead and read this so we have the full context. He says, you can legally show the footage in California if a face is blurred. I worked right to clearances when I produced and directed for A&E. And then he said, you just can't use an image or likeness to a person or their voice without a signed release. Now, I can't remember 100% correctly, but was his voice changed in that show?
I don't remember, and I doubt that Lou Elizondo would be the person making these decisions either.
I agree. He says, blur it, you're okay. I can't remember if the voices were like slowed down or disguised in any way. So be interesting. Their voices weren't aired, John said. I got to go back and look at the clip. Maybe he's right. Now I'm thinking of it. Maybe they just used the image of them sitting there with voices over it. But again, decisions that are not on Lou Elizondo's desk. He's just showing up, and they're telling him where to be. And but like I said, I'm sure there's a lot of perspectives from that story that we'll never ever, I think, get the full picture of. But if John Greenwald's right, who knows? We may get at least the gentleman who was in the show sitting there blurred out. Sounds like we're going to get a face and a name with the story, and then I'm sure we'll all tear through his history and find reasons to hate him and find reasons to think he's right, and then come back and yell, Lou Elizondo's a liar, or Lou Elizondo is our savior. There's
such a scarcity of evidence, right? So it is, we are digging every tiny loose thread that we can possibly find. That's what we're digging for, because there's kind of nothing else to do, right? We got to be going down every avenue.
We are all hungry mutts at the base of a table waiting for a scrap. And when that scrap comes, boy, do we go nuts. And that's why when I saw Lou's tweet, when I saw what Green Street tweeted, when I saw what Greenwald, I was like, you know what? Just shut up. Just let's see what everybody says. Let's see how everybody's reacting. And it kind of went exactly how I thought it was gonna. There, the adamant supporters, the adamant haters on both sides of the coin. And at the end of the day, the way Lou Elizondo ended this, and I can't emphasize enough, I still don't understand all the drama. And it's unnecessary, given we're all on the same team. We're all on the same team. We're all trying to get the same answers, the same questions.
It doesn't feel like that sometimes.
Sometimes, look, I understand why. But then again, why? Because we're these mutts waiting for these scraps. And every scrap we take, we analyze it 15 billion different ways from Sunday. And at the end of it, it's just one puzzle on a huge mosaic that we've barely started putting together. So let's just relax. Let's allow people to be wrong. Let's allow people to make corrections. Let's allow people to be human, and let's just continue forward. Let's keep advocating for the things that are important to us, for me, It's getting in contact with our local and state representatives. It's making them aware of the issue. It's trying to get in contact with people like Elon Musk and say, hey, will you sit down with Avi Loeb and give him $100 million for his Galileo project because you got it. You know, like, that's what we're going to try and do here. Like, this stuff it's not important. It's not important at the end in this conversation until it is an absolute bold-faced, dangerous lie, like on the sort of level of, hey, secret underground bases in Antarctica, give me $30 for my DVD and I'll prove it to you, even though I never stepped foot in Antarctica. I got you. Don't worry about it. Just pay $30 a month and I'm going to give you all the answers. Lou's not doing that. So, you know, to compare him to Linda Moulton Howe, or I even heard somebody compare him to Richard Dolan or whatever, like, this guy's not doing that. He doesn't charge people to come on their shows. He doesn't charge when he goes to speaking events at these different cons and different places. He gets his hotel fee and his airplane fee paid for, because that's what it should be. That's what it is. But his appearance, he doesn't get paid for. What do you got, rather?
Yeah. I mean, I gotta say though, you know, saying that I don't understand the drama does sound a little bit disingenuous because of that long history of characters like Richard Dolan and Martin Linda Howe, who have these extravagant claims. Like, he has a responsibility to really get things right, and it is disappointing when he doesn't. But it's understandable. He is a human.
Agreed. But he's also got to understand, and I agree with you, when he does make a mistake or when he does say something incorrect, this is what happens. This is what happens. It goes into an absolute shitstorm. And so it's unfair. It's unfair. Like, it's an unfair burden.
It's unfair, but I'd say understandable.
But understandable. Unfair, but understandable. And, you know, that's just the world we live in.
Other situation that he could expect, though, I don't think it could be any other way. I mean, you're going to put yourself out as being the symbol, and people sort of make you the leader of this really important movement that has so much behind it. It's just inevitable. I don't think it could be any other way. I'm not saying it's not difficult for him, or maybe he regrets going down this path, but I'm sure he had to expect this and had to know that this is where it was coming.
Yeah.
I mean, at least I'm not even a fraction of the influence and power and that he has, and I certainly take everything, and man, do I say wrong things, and but I do think it's important, and if somebody calls me out about it, I think it's really important for me to clarify or correct, and as much time as I have in my life, I follow up and I solve and I debunk as much and clarify as much things as I can. And it's an ongoing process, right? There's always new questions and follow-ups. So I don't really see that in the tweets, but I also have to watch. I need to watch I don't know what if I want to at this point. I just kind of want this drama to go away.
Yeah. I mean, you could go back. I mean, Tina put the link in the description, but I mean, Me Cutter here for $2 says some people want answers, some people want to sell books, and I don't know if that's in reference directly to Lou.
It could be both.
It could be. I think it could be both. But not only that, here's the beautiful thing about Lou Elizondo writing a book: is there's probably going to be at least one thing in there that John Greenwald will be able to FOIA, if not multiple things. So I don't care that he's selling a book. I want a movie made. I want 10 books written about this. I don't give a shit who writes it or who makes it. Like, just I don't care, dude. Like, write your book, make your movie, sell your pilot. It does not matter to me. If it gets the discussion outside of hashtag UFO, UAP Twitter, I'm all for it. All of it, good and bad. Bob Lazar might be lying in your eyes, might be telling the truth, but the one thing about Bob Lazar is he brings people, he's a magnet. He brings people to the conversation, and then hopefully they'll find the information that leads them on a right path, or a reasonable, rational path. Not right, but rational.
Well, and if
Sorry,
you
Riley.
talk about if you're going to compare people, if you think about some of the outrageous, powerful claims, that Bob Lazar has shared, the important ones, like, oh yeah, there's Area 51 and all those kinds of things. I think that we've been finding increasing proof of a lot of those things and increasing clarity around a lot of those things. So it's kind of funny how people gravitate towards certain people or trust certain people. I think it's fascinating. But I would just say, don't trust anybody. But really,
Don't trust anyone.
always leave room for doubt, and just people to, again, clarify their points further in the future for you.
Yeah.
Maybe surprise
Yep.
you.
If there's one thing that Grant has taught me with his deep fakes is that don't trust anything, especially
Don't
anything.
trust anything. Yeah. Well, I do appreciate that he didn't double down. He wasn't like, oh, this is right. I know it's right, and you're gonna see. Like, he didn't do that, which is awesome. Like, if he had done that, then I would have been really worried. But he didn't. I mean,
all the awards he's won, and
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Grant, what were you gonna say?
No, I was going to say that I think a product of the US government leads to a lot of the division on this topic, and that secrecy breeds suspicion, which breeds distrust. And I think a lot of people look to Lou for, as he is the figurehead of this movement, they maybe will take more stock in things that he says or less stock in others. So I think, if you have doubts about something that someone has said or what they have represented or misrepresented, you need to ask questions. But there is a bigger picture at play, and sometimes answers to those small details will have no impact on the bigger picture. But it doesn't negate the importance of dotting the I's and cross the T's on details that don't match up. I mean, there's a lot of things that this has come up time and time again. ORSAP, the misrepresentation, intentionally or unintentionally, of the $22 million being attributed to ATIP rather than ORSAP. So there's reporting also from journalists that is not accurate, and they're things that should have been called out earlier on and the record corrected. And I don't think it has been corrected to this day. So again, to quote what Greenwald says, details matter. And I think if you've got questions on a detail, then there's nothing wrong with seeking clarification on it.
Yeah, no, he had a really wonderful quote about truth. I'm going to find it right now, but I wanted to, if you could, let's see here, Swink McLeod with a $39 donation. And he says, hold on, it's moving a little slow for me, guys. There it goes. I think it says $39 because it's President's Day and Jimmy Carter's the 39th president who saw UFO. There's your presidential history, Luis. Excellent.
Thanks,
there you go, Grant. Now, happy President's Day, everyone.
There you go. Very good.
And then the meat cutter followed up with unidentified celebrity review. You and I will never see eye to eye, but keep taking my money, with a smiley face. And it's okay we don't see eye to eye. And look, I'm sure if Greenwald was in the room right now, he'd probably be saying things that I'd be like, oh, okay, that's a good point. All right, you're making some sense. But
if you all saw eye to eye, it'd be pretty boring, wouldn't it?
It'd be pretty damn boring.
You got it.
Yep, it'd be absolutely boring. But look, we're gonna talk to John. I'm gonna send him an invite to the show, and I'm sure he'll come on because he loves us, right, John? $5 from Aventi. He says, I treat Lou differently because he leans on government pass for credibility. Would apply if a Forest Service employee did the same. Example, Bigfoot. What do you guys think of that?
Where are the National Forest Rangers and on the Bigfoot topic? That is a great question.
That is a great question. Where's our Lou Elizondo for Bigfoot? Right? Like, where's our version of that guy? But let me see here. Where is John? I was gonna bring up. God, we didn't even get to Jordan Peele's new trailer. Have you guys seen this trailer for Nope?
Yes.
Yeah, epic. Okay. It looks really cool.
Epic trailer. But I wanted to just end this conversation on something that Greenwald said, and I think honestly, when the dust settles, I think this will stand the test of time. And I think both sides will have their day in the sun on this conversation. I think parts of it are going to be wrong, parts of it are going to be right, but I think the parts that we want right are going to be the parts that matter. But John said the truth is not fragile. It won't break if you challenge it. You don't have to walk on eggshells around it. And if it's built on a strong foundation, you can jump up and down on it, asking questions all you want without fear of collapse. So what are people afraid of?
Right on.
You know, and I think that's such a fair statement. And if you don't think that's fair, if you think that is irrational, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. You know, I think asking questions is important. And you know, getting clarifications on things is important. I don't know how much more clarification I need on this from Lou. You know, I'm sure we'll have a question or two regarding this when he comes back, but I really don't give a like, I don't give a shit. And maybe there's something that John Greenwald will say that will make me give a shit, but as of right now, I don't care. Like, for me, this affects nothing for the Big Phone Home. This doesn't affect the mission. This doesn't affect how we want to engage not only our state and local reps, but like Grant said, our family members, our people outside of the hashtag communities, you know, so, you know, moving on. I thought that was a wonderful quote, but I agree with it. So real quick, let's touch on this trailer for Jordan Peele's movie, because I think it's going to be an absolute, I think it's going to be maybe one of the best UFO films to ever be filmed on the topic, like any sort of fiction. This is going to be awesome. I mean, what did you guys feel? How did you guys feel about the trailer? I loved it. I mean, I think he's like Hitchcockian. You know, I think Jordan Peele is on the same level as Alfred Hitchcock. So, but what did you love about it, Jane? Go for it. I'm gonna look for the trailer right now and get some screenshots.
I love the details. Now, I like that it's a real trailer and that it's not telling me what's happening at all. And I just want to see it. And that's my favorite thing, is I really have no idea what to expect with this.
Grant, what did you think about it?
I mean, I love Jordan Peele's films. You know, was Us and Get Out. I mean, they were great. I mean, visually stunning, and I think he's left some really nice nuggets and breadcrumbs for us in the trailer. Like, there's going to be what appears to be grays in the film. So I thought that was a pretty cool pickup in the trailer. But yeah, it looks epic. I mean, I'm a big fan of M. Night Shyamalan's films as well, and I really kind of like the visual similarities that they that have been presented in the trailer anyway. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a really cool film with a strong storyline.
Rather, did you catch the trailer?
Yeah, I'm just nervous that I'm going to be deathly afraid of this issue after watching the movie.
Oh, yeah. Right. I think that could be well. Okay, so I'll because we don't want to get a copyright strike, so I'm trying to keep the moving visuals and the sound out of the film. But the trailer opens up. You know, it's going to be about two family members who run a horse farm that produces horses. They were the first ranch in the Hollywood production era to not only be filmed, you know, riding a black man riding a black horse. It was the first thing to ever be put on film, and the horse came from this ranch. So it's got a really cool already backstory to it that is diverse, but doesn't feel force-fed. It's just like, okay, they're painting the picture. And then, you know, so they go into, from here, after explaining sort of the family history, they start talking about the ranch, and they're showing pictures of the horses and people. You know, it's eerie. It's super eerie. Then it starts getting into the trailer picks up where she's dancing in her house and all of the lights go out, and then everything in the film is now looking up, and it's just like, I can't wait for this film. It's gonna be so damn good. That there were a couple of things that I caught here, and the grays were one of them. And I'm curious to know they didn't show a craft. This is probably my favorite part of the whole trailer right here, where the slow crawl comes out, from Jordan Peele, this new movie. But when we get pictures of this, I mean, look at this. Look at this still shot, like these lights off in the farm, these are all things that we've heard. Like, he's in this trailer, he's kind of simply tapped on the UFO lore really, really, really nicely. And but then he goes into he's got a picture of a craft in here. I'm looking for it, you guys. But of course, the typical lights go out. Now, this was something really interesting in the trailer. So this was a scene where they had a horse in like a cage, almost kind of like a Skinwalker Ranch kind of feel, where they're like basically baiting these things to come out. And it seems like, I could be wrong on this, but it seems like UFOs and aliens are known. People know about them. This is something that's part of humanity, possibly. And so, like, this little podunk show where they put a horse inside this cage to lure out these craft or these creatures, and people are paying tickets to come see this event. So that's one thing I caught about the trailer. And then something that one of the main characters says in the film: what's the opposite of what do they call a bad miracle? And so the opposite of miracle is basically total destruction, like just the worst outcome. I mean, obviously the opposite of a miracle sounds terrible. But there was a really cool shot around here where they show the top of this Gray's head sort of coming at the main character. This movie looks awesome. I've never broken down a trailer before, but as you guys can tell, but I'm super excited about this film. I mean, Jordan, I think I said a few months ago, like, if there's one director that I'd love to see tackle the UFO topic, it's Jordan Peele. Right?
Yeah, it's a must see.
Yeah.
I missed the Gray, so I'm gonna have to click around, freeze frame. It sounds like I don't know how I missed it. I guess there's just so much going on.
So
I think the Gray does a fist pump with a kid under the table, and then you see the little Gray coming around.
I found it for you right here. It's right here. It's hard to see. Well, there's the fist. Somebody also had said that so it almost looks like a horse's hoof. This fist, so maybe there's something to do with the horses and maybe a crossbreeding or something. But if you look right here, there's a little head that's behind the fence about to come around this corner, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of like the Stan Romanek kind of alien thing, where the way it moves. But it's you see right there, you see it, it's like peering. It's a quick cut, but it's definitely moving. It's got two eyes. It's got a huge bulbous head. I mean, like, it's right there. So, and then there's also some imagery of these alien heads, like they have like a shop in the film where they're, like I explained before, where they have this, horse in a cage kind of thing. And I can't remember what the t-shirt said. I looked at it earlier, but yeah, I mean, look, and it says here on this sign, book your next experience here. Whoa. So kind of leads me to believe that maybe they know how to attract them. Somebody figured out how to get these things to come to you in film. And who knows?
How long do we have to wait to see this? Do you know when the release date is?
They have the release date 7/22/22. I cannot wait for July. I cannot wait for July.
That'll be fun.
Man, yeah. I mean, Academy Award winner. This is like Steven Spielberg coming back to do Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Part 2. I think it's just as big, but obviously it's not a sequel to that film. But anyway, I got excited about it. I thought it was one of the cooler things that was a lot more fun to talk about. And I was like, oh my God, just dropped everything. I think I've seen the trailer 15 times at this point. I don't know about you guys.
It looks cool. I wonder if the horses are the equivalent of cattle. Sorry, Jen.
Oh no, I don't want to watch the trailer too much because I don't like spoilers, you know. So.
But I can bet you bottom dollar that everything you've seen in the trailer is probably completely different to what it will turn out to be.
It always is.
Yeah.
Always is. Yeah, I mean, yeah. No matter how good the trailer breakdown is, you're never gonna get it right. That's a nice little bow on the discussion. You know, the UFO community. It's like we're all watching a trailer of a film, and we're trying to guess what the film's about. It's a trailer. End. Yeah, you're not gonna get it. So yeah, that's a nice little analogy. Mr. Grant Lavac, it's an absolute pleasure and honor having you here today, man. Thanks for joining the discussion and being such a great fan and supporter of the show and part of the team. And we love having you as a colleague.
Thanks for having me on. I love what you do. I'm a UCF fanboy through and through. So look forward to seeing bigger and better things for you guys throughout the year. So thanks for having me on.
One little quick thing here from Ryan Sprague, and I also heard this. A lot of people think NOPE stands for not from this planet, or not of this planet, I think is what he meant. Not of this planet.
I still don't get that acronym, but maybe I have to watch the movie.
Not of planet Earth. Not of planet Earth.
Okay, there we go.
That's the acronym. We both screwed it up. He put an F in there. There's no F in NOPE. Where did you get F from, bro? It's all right, Sprague. Not a planet Earth. There you go. You got it right that time. Oh my God, that's so funny. Okay, Grant, before you get out of here, tell everyone where they can find your channel. I've got the links in the description below, but what your next episode is going to be when it's dropping.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and YouTube at Grant Lavac. My new channel, The Unexplained Rundown, I'll be premiering a video hopefully before the end of this month or early into March that chronicles the engagement that I've had with my elected representatives in Australia on the UAP topic. So look forward to revealing some good information on that one. And follow me at Twitter at Grant Lavac if you want to see more deepfakes of the team. One thing I will say that, Lou, don't get too popular because there is a growing trend of deepfake celebrity porn out there. So it might take the unidentified celebrity review to a whole new level. So be careful how popular you get.
Yeah.
Your wife will get really suspect when that starts happening.
Yeah, I'd hate to see her face when she finds that on your phone. All right, Grant Lavac, thank you so much, my friend, for being here. I can't wait till next time you're back. Yeah, man, just thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
This was fun. Yeah. Happy President's Day.
Happy President's Day. Ciao.
Thank you.
All right, you guys, that was the show.
That was a fun discussion.
John Burbridge says dope. Definitely out of propane, everyone. That's what that acronym means.
We're getting there.
All right, you guys. Well, thanks for sticking around a couple extra minutes to talk about the trailer. Rather, you've got a video that dropped late last week.
Yeah. Quantum computing and the DOE, Department of Energy and Material Science. I think that they may have made some developments that we don't know about. Go over to my channel to learn more.
Excellent, Jane. What do you got cooking?
Yeah, I got Martin Willis tomorrow night, so his YouTube channel, and then we've got Weird Hollywood. I mean, movies were my first love. You know, well before UFOs, like, I used to review movies. Was almost gonna do that, like, for my job, and so we're gonna be talking Predator on Thursday, and then right now, if you missed it, I do think the details matter, and so my latest video is the Doubles Towers and the details. You're into movies and you missed it, the Close Encounters ET connection. I go super in depth on that one. So basically, it's like, you know, Close Encounters, ET's the sequel to Close Encounters.
There you go.
How I see
awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate it. Of course, I want to thank all of you guys out there for watching, sharing, liking, subscribing. Go click all the links below. We got links for DOS Tapes, Patreon, merchandise. For Jane, for Grant, everyone's links are in the description below. I can't thank all of you enough for coming aboard, getting weird with us here on another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review. Your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UAP and UFO. Until next time, which will be Wednesday, who we're going to have Peter Robbins on. That's going to be an awesome conversation. Always is. And on Friday, we got Graham Rendall and Dave Partridge with their new podcast coming out. So that should be an awesome conversation as well. And then on Friday, I'm also going to be on Spaced Out Radio for their panel show. So come check us out there. Until next time, we love you all. Peace. I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom, you're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.
People around here been dropping like flies already, and where's that getting us, huh? Nowhere. Fast. You know what old Jack Burton always says at a time like this? Who? Jack Burton. Me.
I believe you're enjoying all this. Indeed, Captain. I've never seen him look so happy.
Shut up.
Well, what do you know? I finally got the last word.